Every day there's thousands of disputes with property, with landlords, with tenants, fair, wear and tear. We're going to cover that for 5 or 10 minutes this morning very quickly, make you a ninja on it. Stay tuned. G'day.
Hello. I'm well. I'm not too happy about the weather this morning, but we'll live.
Yeah, going. I had to be careful this morning because yesterday I went like that and I cracked my shirt. Yeah, I stressed. A bit embarrassing, but a bit funny as well.
Oh, it happens to the best of us. I think you gotta at least have one wardrobe malfunction. I think one, and then you learn from it.
Yeah, it was a bit of a Hulk moment, but it was with fat, not with muscle. Yeah, the Hulk stretches out of his clothes and cracks it all. So anyway.
Yeah, I think you got to go to the gym, Mark, for a bit for being a Hulk. You got a bit way to go.
Yeah, it was a fat moment, not a Hulk moment. So, Sienna, you're dealing with, and you hear about this being dealt with all the time with fair wear and tear with properties, and I guess how it goes is tenants are in a property for 1, 2, 5, 7 years. They go to move out of the property, and there seems to be a disagreement on what should be repaired by the tenant and what should be repaired by the landlord. There's no science on this.
Look, as a leasing consultant and as a property manager, we need to determine whether the tenant or the landlord is responsibility for the wear and tear or an accidental damage. Now, my question to you, Mark, what is the difference between wear and tear and accidental damage?
Oh, the big question first. I guess look, what does apply, and with fair trading, which is where disputes will go to get resolved when agents and landlords and tenants can't resolve it, they end up going to fair trading. What actually happens is there's no it's not a science. It's not a science. So what'll happen is everyone will end up just turning up, in the tribunal, and the tribunal member will always refer to what is fair. So it's not like, there's not like a book that has like thousands of pages and says what you do with the dishwasher and what you do with the blind and what you do with the curtain. But it comes down to what's fair and what's reasonable. So you do have to assess the environment. So it's assessing how old an item is sometimes. If it had any other external factors which contributed to its breakage or wearing down or out. Could it, the possibility, you almost got to become a bit of inspector on it, where an investigator to sort of work out how did this happen or how did it get to this. And it's I guess at the end of the day, you sort of got to stamp that be a bit of a diplomat and be very fair and open when assessing to what's been happened to the item. But there's certainly not a one-off answer for everything.
Yeah, definitely. Now, when we assess properties for the routine inspections, so we can determine whether the tenant is going to receive their bond back, what we use a condition report plus photos. Does the tenant want to make sure that the condition report is completed properly before the tenancy? Do you believe that if the condition report doesn't outline the correct details of the property, is that going to be an issue at the end of the tenancy? Because the tenant did not bring that issue up at the beginning of the tenancy. Do you know where I'm coming from?
I know where you're coming from. And I think a tenant's going to be wary because the agent represents the landlord. The landlord's paying the bill. So when the agent is doing, I call it the Bible because it's just relied on through the whole tenancy, particularly at the end. When the agent's doing that inspection report, when the tenant moves in, They're
Yeah.
basically trying to take a freeze frame of the condition of the property, and then they want to get the property back in that condition, accepting fair wear and tear, like what would happen over 1 or 5 or 10 years. Now, the problem that tenants have is they they take the agent's report as clear and accurate, which it probably is, but the intention of what that was done for was to protect the landlord. So I think as a tenant, you've really got to have a good look over that ingoing condition report and just make sure the agent hasn't missed anything that could bite you on the bum when you go to move out. So I think, having your own set of photos that you can supply to the agent at the beginning of the tenancy of the property. And I think going through that report and verifying and checking all the items that the agent did is going to cover you in the end. Because so many times we'll hear, that was like that when I moved in.
Yeah.
And then we all go back to the Bible, we all go back to the ingoing report, and the ingoing report says otherwise. And then the tenant goes, I swear. Now, they could be right. It could have been missed, but there is an onus where a tenant really has to check that ingoing report, and they've got a period when they move in that they can actually go through it and check it. There's a grace period. Make sure you get it back to the agency. Make sure you've stamped over everything that you need to stamp. Stamp over it and check everything.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think you answered that question quite well, Mark. Well,
pressure's on.
The pressure's always on.
Always on. With live, when there's that little red signal up top saying live, the pressure's always on. It'll be used against you.
I know. So if you just tuned into us, we're talking about wear and tear and accidental damage. That's not fair. So pretty much my next question would be is, what is the tenant responsible if they cause accidental damage? Do they pay for the damage, or if it was an accidental damage, would the landlord have to pay for it?
There's accidental damage that so we've often had door glass breakage where wind has actually caught a door and slammed it and broken it. And I guess, was that the tenant that actually did that with their hand, or was that the wind that did that? That's a really, really hard one to decide on. Definitely, if a tenant's made a mistake of their own by accident, much like a car accident, then they are going to be responsible for it. But sometimes there are elements or things that will happen in a property that are an accident, it wasn't contributed by the tenant, and then the landlord's going to have to pay for that.
Definitely. And what example could we give everyone for an accidental damage from the tenant? I was thinking maybe something to do with pets or kids, something that the tenant cannot prevent. Do you have any ideas, Mark?
So, can I have an example? What do you mean? Like a dog scratches a wall?
Yeah, scratches a wall, or leaves hair everywhere or something, and the tenant had done a full clean of the property at the end of their tenancy. The agent comes in to take a look at the property. There's dog hair everywhere, or there's a scratch on the wall from the kid, or there's drawing on the wall that the tenant did not pick up. It's an easy fix. However, it's going to cost time. Yeah,
look, it's definitely a tenant responsibility. Definitely got to fix it. Obviously, you go back to the Bible, you go back to the ingoing report. One thing that's interesting that Fair Trading will do as well, and Fair Trading, the guys that will adjudicate when we can't reach a decision, is they will also allow for the age of what's being replaced. So, for instance, if it's 20-year-old carpet and the tenant has damaged the carpet, it's going to cost the tenant a different amount to if it's 1-year-old carpet that they've done the same damage to. So they will look at not only with wear and tear. Will Fair Trading consider when they're looking at that mark? They'll also consider the age and how long it's been there for. So same with dog damaging a property and things like that. So, and it's never what landlords and and tenants often have a dispute over it, it doesn't mean the whole unit has to be replaced. So unfortunately, it doesn't for landlords, and fortunately for tenants. What I mean by that is if there's a red wine stain in the carpet in the living room and the carpet's a year old in the whole unit, the tenant doesn't have to put new carpet in to the whole unit. They will actually say it's just the living room. They will assess how old is that carpet. Then they'll assess the portion within the living room that's affected, and then they'll make a dollar value consideration towards that. Believe it or not, agents are adjudicating that is very, very hard. The landlord takes a solid position in one direction and the tenant takes a solid position in the other. If you're trying to explain to a landlord why you're reducing, it's a portion, the age, the room, the whole unit, a landlord generally doesn't like or won't agree, and nor would the tenant on the other side when you're saying that to the tenant. So fair trading is great to work that stuff out when it's a diplomatic way to get a good resolution.
Definitely. But would you think that it would be our last resolution?
Yeah, look, when they do that, it's finite, it's done. You can make an appeal, but when they do, but it's very rare people make an appeal. So it's finished once you get there, and it's a relatively cheap process. It's $50-$60. Where it costs money is because it's time that you can take a half a day or a day out of both the tenants and the landlord's agent's time. But that's not fair, wear and tear.
Well, I have one more question for you, Mark, and I guess this relates to the landlords. Now, this was a thought that I had last night. What damage is the insurance that the landlord covers?
Say that again.
Sorry, let me slow down. What damage from the property is the landlord's insurance cover?
It's generally not contents. So tenant contents, it's everything but the contents. With landlords insurance, it's $25,000 malicious damage, and it can be up to $25,000 loss of rent, things like that. You can be up for a couple of different excesses. I would say probably half of our landlords would take out landlord's insurance. They are an incredible policy. They're a great policy, and they're good for a landlord that doesn't really. Some landlords aren't good landlords. They lose sleep, and that's where you take that insurance policy out. But with fair wear and tear, and relating back to the landlord's policy. Sometimes there's a bit of a blend. I know Luke's mentioned just in his comment here, maybe the tenant can pay the excess of the insurance claim. Look, I think there's, at the end of the day, there's these insurance policies are, they're the last result. So we don't really want to rely on bonds. We don't want to rely on insurance policies. We just want to get their fair wear and tear assessed and fixed if it's not fair wear and tear. But look, they're very good. I'd definitely recommend it, and they're very holistic. We never really get a lot of pushback. One thing I would say with a landlord, if you are taking out the policy, is try to use the agent's recommended policy, because they've dealt with those assessors and that company before, and there's a bit of a relationship happening there.
Yeah. Well, I think that covers it, doesn't it?
That's not fair wear and tear. Any other examples we can give with not fair wear and tear? I like the dog one.
Sun damage on floorboards, I would say.
Yeah, that happens a lot. You know what one is? This is a heavily disputed one: leaving a window or door open during the rain. So,
excuse me.
You look like you're joking, man.
One moment.
So guys, that's a big
Okay,
one
I'm
with
back.
sun
Sorry.
damage. You're back. You saw you. Yeah, the sun damage is a big one, and you know what? Water and sun, there is a responsibility there for the tenant to protect, the property as well. So to have floorboards and to have it and to leave the door open and rain like goes onto the floorboards and damage them, that's not fair wear and tear. So yeah, that's a good example.
I look like I'm crying. This is terrible.
That's not, you're crying because it's not fair wear and tear. But all seriousness, this creates a lot of stress with tenants and landlords. So it's a really good topic. If you know anyone that's actually been in this situation, try to share this, and hopefully they can find some resolution by watching the video and applying it to their circumstances. But yeah, it's rental life, and it's not that bad. It's not that bad.
Yeah. And we're here to help. We're here to help.
That's it. And the agent's attitude helps.
Definitely.
That with the fair wear and tear and talking with your agent, sometimes you might just get an agent that's a muppet and they don't handle it well. But generally, most great agents out there, you'll find they'll navigate you through this fair wear and tear when you're moving out pretty well.
Yeah, and also definitely explain the condition report before they even hop into the property. As a leasing consultant, it's really important that they do understand what a condition report is.
Absolutely. Put a lot of emphasis into that in-gang report. That's the best advice you've given out of today, for sure. Thanks, Sienna.
No
Take
problem.
care. See you, everyone.
Bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.